Good morning, LBC Radio. My name is Corey Rosen with the Story Podcast. Today I have on Doris Hall-Gulati. Most recently, Doris won a 2018 Grammy Award as clarinet soloist with the choir group The Crossing on an oratorio by Lansing McLoskey entitled ZEALOT Canticles. Doris can also be heard on the MMC, Naxos and New World record labels. About the recent Naxos recording of Hansen's Nymphs and Satyr Ballet Suite, Paul Cook of ClassicsToday.com was moved to say, "I was particularly taken by Doris Hall-Gulati on the clarinet." A new recording of clarinet and bass clarinet works by John Carbon was released in September of 2017, and in 2018 she has recorded new works with several composers and is awaiting their release. Most recently, Doris has recorded works with Lyric Fest, Mendelssohn Club of Philadelphia, The Crossing, and composer Kile Smith. After being awarded first prize in the Louise D. McMahon International Music Competition, Doris gave her New York City debut performing the world premiere of John Carbon's Rhapsody for Clarinet and Orchestra at Avery Fisher Hall, Lincoln Center with Gerald Schwartz and the New York Chamber Symphony. About that performance, Alan Kozin of the New York Times wrote, "A demandingly agile clarinet line played with both virtuosity and nuance by Doris J. Hall-Gulati wove its way through a variegated orchestra fabric." Miss Hall-Gulati made her Carnegie Hall debut playing with Alaria Chamber Ensemble, with her Merkin Hall debut premiering Thea Musgrave's Ring Out the Wild Bells with the Philadelphia Trio, in addition to her position as principal clarinet in the Chamber Orchestra of Philadelphia, the Ocean City, New Jersey Pops Orchestra, and the PA Philharmonic Orchestra. Doris is also acting principal clarinet / bass clarinetist of Opera Philadelphia and assistant principal / bass clarinetist with the Lancaster Symphony. She also performs regularly with the PA Ballet, the Philly Pops, the Delaware Symphony, Orchestra 2001, and Vox Amadeus. In 2011, Doris became an artist in residence at Franklin and Marshall College in Lancaster, PA, and is happy to have joined the faculty of Lancaster Bible College in 2015. An advocate for new music, Doris has performed in music festivals and on multiple series as soloist and chamber musician throughout the world. Doris is a member of the Fulbright Hayes awarded ensemble Trio Clavino, performing throughout the U.S., Europe, and Asia. Doris also performs annually with Beyond Ourselves, a group of chamber musicians who performs to help raise funds for MCC, that is Mennonite Central Committee, peacekeeping efforts around the world. In 2018, this 4-member ensemble plus guests raised funds for the MCC/MDS post-hurricane efforts in Puerto Rico and Haiti. Doris also spent time in Cuba and Bermuda in June 2017, volunteering as a clarinet instructor and mentor. Doris earned her bachelor's degree from the Peabody Conservatory of Music, and she received a master's in music studying on a graduate fellowship from the University of Michigan. Doris is a Phi Kappa Lambda. Her principal instructors have been Ignatius Janusa,
yes,
Lauren Kitt, and Fred Ormond. She was introduced to chamber music by Karen Tuttle, who Doris greatly admires. Find Doris' work on YouTube and Spotify. That's a lot to push through.
That was a lot of something.
Yeah.
I don't think it sounds better than it is, right?
Right. How are you doing today?
I'm great, Corey. I'm thrilled to be here. I'm honored. I'm blessed. A lot of things. I really am thrilled that you asked me.
Yeah. So what was it for you with this list of astronomical accomplishments? What was it that first started your interest in clarinet?
Now that's a loaded question. Okay, so you want me to go back, right?
Go way
really
back.
way back, which means I'm old, right? So I didn't really have a choice. Okay. So
Really?
here's the deal. I have 3 brothers, 2 of which are absolutely in a different generation. They are much older. One that's only 10 years older. So obviously he just couldn't wait for a sister to come along to pick on or anything to come along to pick on. But having another generation in the household meant that, well, not so much clothing, I'm the only girl, but there were lots of things around. And my brothers were given, let's put it this way, my brothers were of the generation, the baby boomers, who, when the men got back from World War II and married, our country was booming, like baby boomers. Everything was booming. And so even those that were not of any means fiscally had the chance in public school to do things like try instruments. For the first time, there was music education. Things were drastically changing in America. And my brothers were given the opportunity to try instruments. And so my 2 older brothers played through the system and played trombone and clarinet. So when I came along and they were basically out of the house already, there was a trombone and a clarinet sitting in the household. So when I came along, my mom says, well, there's a clarinet here. You can play clarinet. So it really wasn't that much of a choice. And I'm not a big person now. And so you can imagine I was quite tiny as an elementary child. And so trombone wasn't even an option. So basically it was clarinet. Now, my music studies didn't necessarily begin there. My mother really is an interesting story. Her father was born on a boat coming over from Italy. So, first generation, she's basically first generation. He's in between. He was born in the Atlantic. No, nothing. I mean, they really coming here to have a better life. She also was of a broken home, which was unheard of in the Depression, born a few months before the great crash of 29. There were lots of things. My father too, these are people who didn't, they was a big deal. They graduated high school. So coming here, she, as a little girl, she saw movies. This is when people went to movies for 5 cents and such. Wow. And, you're talking Shirley Temple. You're talking really old, they saw this and like, look at these people dancing. So one thing my mom wanted to have was to give me the chance to take dance lessons. Everybody was doing this back then. So she put me in these very inexpensive group dance lessons as a 4-year-old. And it was not probably something I chose, I'm sure. But she did that, which kind of got me ready, I guess, in front of people. But my big thing I wanted to do in music was I grew up in St. James Episcopal Church, which is here in Lancaster. And they had a 4-part harmony choir from the start. I mean, Episcopal music is tremendous. It's just everything. And I, at 7 years old, said I wanted to be in that. And there was no children's choir. You were with the adults, and you were singing 4-part harmony from that.
Oh, wow.
And I wanted that. That's something. So obviously, I was, God had me in that direction already. That there was something going on. So then, like the next year or two, like I said, when the public school says, do you want to try an instrument? And back then you had to pass a test. Not everybody was given.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was pretty crazy. You had to be of a certain level to be allowed to play an instrument. And so I passed that test and I said, my mom says clarinet, blah, blah, blah. I want to play flute. Of course, I'm a girl. What do you want to play, flute or harp?
Right.
Harp wasn't even on my vocab yet. So clarinet was, and that was how I started. I had a deficiency, I had a problem. It's like I was a real whiz as far as I could play any rhythm, I could play any notes. I had this great technique, but I could not articulate. So articulation on the clarinet requires your use of the tip of your tongue. Well, I had sucked my thumb since in vitro, apparently. And my mother must have thought it was cute because she never thought anything that, to get it out. So I was still sucking my thumb when I started. That depresses your tongue. You're talking speech pathology issues, lisps. So my tongue wasn't. So band director says, look, we see super talented, but we need to send her to a specialist at first to see if we can get her to articulate, because this is going to work. And that's how it all started. It all started with me starting to take private lessons from the clarinet professor at Lebanon Valley College, who would come to Lancaster once a week. And as soon as that problem was fixed, he was like, look, you should go on. And I said, my mother and father said, do you want to continue lessons? Now that, you supposedly fixed this problem, you never can fix something, art, you're learning till the day you stop. And I said, yes. And it was then I said at 10 years old, I want to become a clarinetist, which is a pretty
Wow.
crazy proclamation of 10-year-old. I don't know what that was about, but that's what
Well,
I said.
I mean, that whole situation is wild because if you had had that problem today, they would have just let you play it anyway, and
Oh.
not even like considered it
It
being a
wouldn't have mattered.
problem.
No, it wouldn't be a problem. It's like, it doesn't matter. You just opportunity, whatever. Or they may have said that, hey, probably not. You're right.
Yeah,
Probably
that's what I'm
not.
saying. It was
No.
probably wouldn't even care enough to.
No, and I mean, I've had students go, or we get students in the colleges that aren't necessarily trying to be music majors. I'm not talking about that, but I've had students come in and play in the bands or be participants or supposedly, playing a competitive this and that, and they can't play a D major scale.
Mhm.
So, right, it's a different kind of training. I mean, I'm very blessed to have been in Lampeter Strasbourg School District as an incredible music department. Has since right after World War II. There was the band director, the John McKenzie, was unbelievable. Now, he was strict and it was tough, and at that time you had to take a test even to get in, but it was huge and we were really fine. And I was lucky. I mean, there was the platform for me to grow quickly.
So, 10 years old, you're saying, I'm going to be a clarinetist. What comes next?
Oh, there's lots of things. You're
I
10
know.
years old. Broke out my front tooth right after that. And I remember
no.
first thing I'm thinking of, I think I was twirling a baton or something. The sun got my eyes, hit my tooth, broke it off. And I'm like, I can't imagine looking back, we laugh. We're like, first thing comes out of my head is, how am I going to play the clarinet? No. Okay. What, are you a nerd?
Right.
This is how you going to play the clarinet? How about the fact that you might not have a front tooth? But, even though my parents didn't have any dental care properly, my poor father had dentures by like 17. There was, bonding. They could do something that made it that from that point on until I got a true crown. And that wasn't even until like through my master's, I had a bonded way of bonding another kind of fake tooth onto it to make it that I could play. I could continue to study.
That's so wild.
It is wild.
So, you graduated high school?
I did, from Lampeter Strasbourg in this county, which is, like I said, a fantastic arts school.
And then, what made you choose? Was there a gap of time, or did you immediately, it was like, oh, Peabody?
Oh, no, I was young. In fact, I turned 17 in the middle of my senior year. So I was a little too young. I was too young. I went to school at 4 years old. I think my mom wanted to get rid of me. Kind of don't blame her. I was probably annoying and whatever. She had 3 other kids in another generation. She was done. She was done. It's like, this is great and all, but you got to go to school. So I was really young, but I was always wanting to get out. And so, and being I'm the only girl, my parents were older. I think they wanted to be more protected. They didn't want me to go far away. But I didn't have a lot of advice or guidance. I have to be honest. I really didn't. But I knew that I wanted to be in a conservatory of music. I needed to be in that sort of trade school. Conservatories of music really more are trade schools in their own right. They're not like Peabody has a really great academics. They're tough. They're known for that. Eastern School of Music, Indiana, Peabody. There's some that are. Otherwise, I hear my stories from my friends from other conservatories where I don't know what they did other than practice. I mean, they didn't get any academics. But Peabody is good, and it is part of Johns Hopkins. I didn't know that. I just wanted to be somewhat close, and I wanted to be where I was going to be able to grow. I wanted to be where the action was because I didn't know. I was just a kid through the school system.
Right.
We just didn't, again, it started off and then I didn't have anybody advising my parents what to do next. It would have been fantastic. We're not far from Philadelphia and we're not far from Baltimore. Had I gotten into those youth symphonies or those chamber music programs really young, but I didn't. And that's okay. There was a lot of life to do. There was other things, through high school, I got to be a cheerleader. I was the lead in the play. I got to play Helen Keller. I sang voraciously. I mean, for a while we thought maybe I was going to be a vocal major. Loved it. I got to be in the madrigals. I loved acting. So I got to be a kid, and I think looking back now, God made sure that I got to be a kid. I had a real childhood for the good and the bad and the ugly. Right. There's some good and bad and ugly, yeah, for sure. But I was a kid. I was a kid from a small town, ran around your bare feet.
So what was you've had a few big moments in your life. What was one of the bigger moments in Peabody that kind of made me granted, I've been told that there isn't really a big break. It's just a series of smaller breaks that get bigger and bigger each time. You
mentioned a violist that I admired. who has now passed away, Karen Tuttle. Karen Tuttle, I am so, I mean, this was the big turning point. I had chamber music, and I was assigned to a trio where she was going to be coaching. And Karen Tuttle is known as one of the greatest viola pedagogists ever.
Oh, really?
Ever lived. And I didn't know this at the time. And she was teaching at Juilliard and Curtis and Peabody. She was doing, and she's unbelievable and just produced incredible violists. And she was my coach, and she just looked at me. It was like after the first second, she says, you're special. There's something going on here. And she just took me under her wing. And she actually wanted me to transfer to Curtis Institute in Philly. That didn't quite work out, and that's okay too. That was for the better now that I look back. That was probably the big influence of change. I would say that was one of the biggest, if not the.
And so you gained notoriety through there?
I would say no. I was struggling. I mean, I was at Peabody with kids who had instruction and experiences that I did not have. I had a lot of catching up to do, and didn't even know it. I had no clue that I did, because when you go through a system where, you have like states and all Easterns, all these competitions, and you're always first and you're always this, and you don't have any idea of what else is on the other side, whether it's just not those competitions, but other avenues and things. You go in with an ego or just the idea that you're on top of the world. You just don't know if you don't have that advisement that should be talked to you about, or just, I think too, because I had that childhood and I had such an incredible time growing up and got to do other things, I also had the chance to like learn some saxophone on my own, learn flute, play in the jazz band, do those fun things. Well, they were sort of downplayed at the time. Like, if you're going to be a clarinetist, well, you can't play any of those other things, or you just have to do classical. You get jazz. That's like taboo. I was like, what? Look,
right.
It's ridiculous. So there were things like, well, if you want to do all that, then you should be music education. Well, probably I would have been great. And I love music. I'm an educator. I've been for over 30 years, but that's not what I wanted. I wanted isolated clarinet. Like, that's what I thought I wanted. And again, without advisement, you don't know what you want, or just everything was being pigeonholed. Well, maybe you should just be that. Well, I had to fight that system. I'm like, no, I just want to do what I'm being driven. A lot of times my best moments in life have been when it's spontaneous and just that's it. And I know right then it's not pre-thought out a decision. Sometimes it just happens. And I knew at that time that music education, the traditional, what we call music education training, was not for me. But it is very important to me now.
Right.
And it's very important to me. And I like where we're going with that. We're making a lot of changes.
So you finished Peabody. What made you get your master's?
Okay, and that's a good story too. So I was with, you mentioned some of my teachers. I was with Ignatius Janusa, who was an old-time Italian clarinetist, fantastic player who had a couple bad situations happen in his life and had to leave his principal position stuff. But he was an amazing clarinetist, an artist too, maybe, but mainly just clarinetist. He was. However, he was not a teacher. I mean, he was great. Things he said now are absolutely dead on. He was right from this first time he opened his mouth to me, but he did not know how to now teach that or give you on to someone who could. He didn't know how to teach, but he was dead on. So I could tell by the second. So at the end, by my third year, I was told they were bringing in some other clarinetists. They're bringing in the principal from the National Symphony, principal from the Baltimore Symphony. And I thought to myself, I have one more year left. I'm transferring into one of those studios. I need to do this. It was spontaneous. I just knew it. And I had to tell Mr. Janusa, which was tough because we were close, but I needed to do it. And I just knew it. So I transferred into Lauren Kitt's studio, principal of the National Symphony. Brilliant clarinetist. Again, I'm not sure if I could define that as a teacher, especially at that time. He had not been teaching yet. He had been playing for so long, and they just put him into this. And again, his pedagogy was, I don't know what it was. There was no teaching. And he kind of knew it. And he was a very different person. He wasn't like Iggy, which was really full of life and really animated. He was very reserved, and he was also kind of tough. Like he was sort of like, well, you're the big shot here. Basically, without saying any of this, you're the big shot, and that's great. But you need an eye opener again. You need a rude awakening. So that senior went pretty well. Although again, I thought I was getting a teacher. I didn't get a teacher. I got a great coach and great artist. He said to me, look, if you really want to do this, possibly, not sure what you want to do in this, but if you want to do this, you need to study with a great teacher. And one of the greatest teachers in this country right now is a best friend of mine. And his name is Fred Ormond, and he teaches at the University of Michigan. And that was the connection. And I have to tell you that Fred Ormond is a great teacher. He was like, look, you have to, this is like an athlete. You have to warm up. You have to get those fundamentals. You have to always keep them in line. You have to do this. You have to do, and you have to break down. You have to practice. I never really practiced until grad school even.
Oh, wow.
I didn't even practice. I just played all the time because I was gifted with these great fingers. It was like I could just weasel my way through, or I could just do it and it sounded good, but I had no understanding what I was doing and I didn't really break it down properly. So Fred Ormond, get to Michigan, which Michigan is clarinet. It's I don't know what, clarinet wasteland. I don't know what to say.
Okay.
I mean, we're talking like 5 bands, 2 orchestra. We're talking unbelievable. It was always like an incredible clarinet studios because let's face it, if you have violins as your mainstay of an orchestra, clarinets are your mainstay of a band. You need like 30 in a band, and they had 5 bands. So you have people who could play who aren't even close to being music majors. Everybody could play. It was great. It was the best thing could have happened to me because everybody's good. And I went in I was on the top. I was doing well. As grad school, there's doctoral students who are amazing. Everybody's amazing. And kids who are majoring in, I don't know what, horticulture or something who are amazing. So this was a great eye opener. But again, I'm still young. Go for my master's. Peabody's academic training for me is fantastic, and I can pass out of almost everything academically. So I'm only 21 too, and I'm burnout. A lot of ways I'm burnout because, again, I'm getting an overload of trying to make up for stuff that I wasn't prepared for. So I look at this and I'm like, I'm watching Fred. I'm watching the studio class. Like he has me. He absolutely is dead on how to teach. But I got to get out of here. So I graduate with my master's in less than a year. And I get out.
Wow.
Yeah, I get out, 22. And I'm really burnt out. And I come home and I say, I don't know what I'm doing. I put away the clarinets for almost a year. I put away everything for almost a year. I did get turned on to bass clarinet in Michigan. A little bit in Peabody, mainly in Michigan. That was a light bulb went off. So I was going to, get myself bass clarinet, E flat. I was going to get some more clarinets, bring back the sax in my life, the saxophone in my life, flute, do some things that hadn't been around for a while. But in the meantime, I'm back to Lancaster County, living in Strass, with the train station in Strass with my parents. And they're, these are workers. These are people who are factory workers. Like, well, you got to get a job. So I go, my one brother, not the one that's super old, but he's, working at a golf course. He's, look, I can get you a job handing out golf carts for $4 an hour full time. Guess what? Doesn't matter if you graduated with honors from, you're going to do that. And I did it. And I worked up to working in a front desk in a hotel. And then started to see, okay, now I'm ready to go back to this. I haven't touched instruments basically for 9 months. I'm ready to go back. And I did. I started I'm going to open up a studio. Let's see, teaching back in music stores, open up my own studios. I started playing. I auditioned, started playing shows full time at the Dutch Apple. I started doing things and taking orchestral auditions. I got in Harrisburg and Reading, opera company game. Things started happening. Got at F&M. Interesting enough, I started teaching at F&M that next year when I was 23, right after I took off. And I started as clarinet and flute instructor, not clarinet and sax, clarinet and flute. So huge eye opener. I started, teaching at that time, it wasn't even for credit quite yet. Then like a year later, it went for credit. Met a student who's still a good friend. One of the first students we had from mainland China. This is, back when nobody was coming over from mainland China. Jeffrey Gao, who's also a composer now too. I mean, just everything started opening up. Is that Elizabethtown was actually my very first adjunct job, right before F&M. I started teaching clarinet and saxophone. And it was Dr. Otis Kitchen, who was this, an incredible music educator and band director that I had as a little kid in youth symphony here, who heard I got back in town and said, I need to get an adjunct in here to help me with teaching clarinet and sax. And that's how I got in, passed everything in. So it was just, everything started happening. It was definitely, luck, fate, whatever. It just started happening.
That's wild. It sounds like a lot of networking.
It surprisingly wasn't as much networking as I should have been networking. If it had been networking, it would have been even better. It was just, it happened.
It just happened.
It's God. It happened. It was just like a little bit of talking. It just happened. So it was meant to be.
Right.
It's not the networking that I like to see now, and healthy networking. I'm not talking about, just dog and pony show stuff. I mean, it's a very important, and it's very important to remember your roots, where you come from. So I talked a little bit, I said something about John McKenzie. It's amazing how much, Bill Greger, who I'm still friends with, my incredible junior high band director, still in this area, still play. I mean, you can't forget. You need to always remember those people. Otis Kitchen, again, I was a little kid. He remembered. He heard I was back in town, came out of Peabody, Michigan. He's like, hey, I want to get this back. You have to remember where you come from and those people that really matter. I got to play in church. Frank McConnell, the organist, was here almost 50 years at St. James. He brought me in as a little girl singing. He would have me play. He would have me play with the organ. These were, bring in a series. And these people paved the way for me to be where I am today. It's not just this teacher, because he has a big name, he sits, principal French horn in the Boston Symphony, or, Yo-Yo Ma, I did a masterclass, so I'm going to drop that name. They're not always the people that pave that way. They're not the ones. Maybe they do help, of course, but never forget your roots. Never forget, because they were in place for a reason.
Right. Yeah, that's wild. So when did you start going into high notoriety of performing chambers?
Like just getting into what seems like more deal.
More bigger deal.
Okay.
Yeah, more bigger deal.
So I always thought, first of all, I started to study the bass clarinet on my own. I was really digging bass clarinet because bass clarinet does kind of rule. It really does.
It's awesome.
And it was not, when I grew up, the old adage of those who can't teach, or again, if you can't play the clarinet, you put them on bass clarinet. That this crazy ideology, which is ridiculous, was stuck in my head, but not stuck enough that I went with it, because I'm like, this is nonsense. I should play a bass. It was like a monster instrument, and it's difficult and it's different. If you can't play clarinet, nobody should even be thinking about putting you on a bass. I mean, it's crazy. So I think I was fighting that. Plus, I was starting to do a lot of listening in orchestral works, because I had spent a lot of my undergrad in chamber, not orchestral, which is normally what we get put in. But I really was into solo and orchestral work. Chamber work. So I was listening. I was thinking, there's a couple openings. People would call me and say, do you know there's an audition here? It's a union job now. This is all behind screens. You're legit. I think you should think about it. So I took auditions for like Harrisburg Symphony, Reading Symphony, the Opera Company, on bass, and I won. So it started to open those doors in that way. So that part of my life was starting to open up, the orchestral. Then, and opera's amazing. Opera's a whole different, I was so thrilled to be doing some of that. I was still doing chamber music, had some groups coming here. I was doing concerts because I was lucky enough to be teaching in colleges, so I'd have access to series. I would do church series. But then came an international competition. And it was something I never did. Again, other than the band competitions, like states, regionals, whatever that is, that's not, we don't have a solo competition like Michigan does, Texas does, some of these other states do. So I'm like 30 and I thought, I never did this, but I love and I'm very comfortable playing concertos in front of orchestras. I'd even conducted because I was like a drum major in high school. And then I went on to study conducting at Peabody as, I loved it almost as a minor. And just leading, being that front, I thought, I'm looking at this competition. I thought, I think I can do this. I think I can. Why not? So I applied, got through to the finals, and then we were all live, like everything, and I won. And when I won that opened the doors for a lot of things. That opened the doors for like John Carpenter to say, hey, why don't we rate you a concerto? You could premiere it in New York City. Like, why don't we do, you know what I mean? There was finally some cred. So I would say that big life change made a lot of changes. That was a start to a lot of changes.
Was your bass clarinet?
That was clarinet.
Oh, clarinet.
Clarinet was the international competition. And then also, there used to be an institution here. I don't know if you know that. It was for 20 years called the Pennsylvania Academy of Music. I started there in 91. I was actually the first teacher to teach a lesson. It was John Derenkamp, former Metropolitan Opera bass baritone who grew up in Lancaster County, lives here now too. He's in his 80s. We taught the first lessons for the Pennsylvania Academy of Music. It was fantastic. I had opportunities to play with wonderful musicians who are a lot are still here in Lancaster, and I still have connections with, and we still play together, teaching fabulous students of all ages. And the youngest one I had was 5. And then we'd go up through a program that you do, to have like time off between undergrad and grad. I had students doing that. These fantastic players. Got to coach things. So the Pennsylvania Academy of Music intertwined with that, like the support from them and from Franklin and Marshall for me to even go to that competition, have the finances to go, was really a huge platform again to the next thing. Unfortunately, the Pennsylvania Academy of Music does not exist anymore. But the founders live right behind me now.
That's wild.
Yeah. And Mike Gimanis is still a good friend for me, and he actually is the head of Music for Everyone, MFE.
No way.
Oh yeah, you gotta bring Mike in. It's unbelievable.
I talked to Brandon Stengel.
Yes.
I'm gonna have him on eventually. Yeah, that's awesome.
Interesting. Mike's story is really interesting.
Yeah, you're gonna have to connect me with all these people.
Yeah, he's so. What I've seen, Mike and I knew each other in high school. We both went to St. James Episcopal Church, and then we sort of went different ways. It was a Juilliard kid. It was people we just did, and then we really started to get to know each other again right after he got back. I know I was already at the academy. His parents were running it, and he came back and was like. And now from that, it's just unbelievable transformation. Honestly, I really admire Mike.
Yeah, it's crazy how you keep talking about all these big musicians that grew up here, but then come back.
We did. It's surprising.
That's not the case for a lot of other bigger musicians.
And everybody said to me, if you go back, you're not going to do anything. Like everybody's like, oh, we have to go get a job here. You have to take these. Well, guess what? Anybody says I can't, that's just going to make me say.
Right, do it even more.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
I don't believe in that.
So what was the process of going up to becoming a Grammy Award winner?
Another interesting story.
I'm sure it is.
It is a little interesting to me. Maybe I was taking a nap, but okay. So I'm in Opera Philadelphia. That starts around right before that competition, 96. And bass clarinet's not that used that much in opera. Some things. It was like Aida. It's unbelievable. It's the big aria between the bass clarinet and the tenor. But you got to get to Act 4. So it just depends. More modern operas, yes, not the workhorses.
Aida by Elton John and Tim
Oh,
Rice.
No.
Okay. I was like, I know that one very, very, very well.
Yeah, you do, but that's not it. No, you'll go back. We'll talk about that later.
Right.
So, there's this incredible choral director who's doing the chorus at Opera Philadelphia. Well, okay, so I see this guy once. I forget because I'm in Banda. Banda means you're like the backstage stuff. Sometimes you're either on stage or backstage.
Gotcha.
So because I don't always have to play in the main opera, I could do Banda thing. I'm listening to this choral director. I'm like, who is this? Find out he's also the conductor of the Choral Arts Society in Philadelphia. Donald Nally. Wow, powerhouse. It's just like powerhouse musician and real like meticulous and real just stern and tough, and he's very, very tough. So I'm in the Chamber Orchestra of Philadelphia a little, about the same time. And the Chamber Orchestra of Philadelphia is hired to play a requiem with the Choral Art Society. Donald Nally's group. He hires us. He gets us. He gets funding. He hires us to do the Finzi requiem. Gerald Finzi is an amazing composer from England. In fact, Dr. Thor just played, I think, an epilogue of his for piano and strings last night at Highland on the series there. It's just gorgeous music. Gorgeous. And so I get the music, and I'm listening, I'm preparing, and it's going to be with Donald Nally. Went in there, and it's gorgeous music, gorgeous lines. I was very prepared. Well, Donald's his usual self, real tough as nails. Like, you people aren't prepared. I mean, some of you are really, and I really admired him. So that's like in late 90s. That's like around late 90s, 2000 something. Donald now has leaving Philadelphia. Choral Art Society is leaving. He's leaving, heard he was leaving. In the process, he had already started an organization called The Crossing.
Mm-hmm.
So they're started up, but he's going a different direction. He doesn't want to do the opera thing anymore. He's, going to teach here and there. And so we don't cross paths again until like 2017 because McLoskey wants to hire The Crossing to do Zealot Canticles.
Mm.
And so and he's like, look, this is a crazy clarinet part. We need a clarinetist. And that's how we connected again.
Wow.
With Donald. Yeah.
So it's almost like your life has literally been building up to
lots of things.
Every single thing that you've ever done.
I think everything builds up. I mean, I had, I definitely builds up to things. I can think of it's same thing with Finding Christ.
Mm.
Definitely. There was definitely build up, and I don't know if we want to do that right now, if we want to talk about that, but
I want to get more.
I want to do music.
About
okay, if you want to get to that at some point, you gotta hear that story.
Well, yes, we will get to all of that. Unfortunately, we're not going to have a lot of time today, but I definitely want to have you on again if you'd be willing.
I'd be thrilled.
Awesome. So one thing I want to know, what's the process of like so when did you realize that this was going to be like maybe a nomination for a Grammy?
I knew at the performance I started crying. I knew it.
Really?
Yeah.
So what is the
I started bawling right after it. I knew that if they were going to be looked at for a Grammy, because The Crossing had won a Grammy already.
The Crossing Acquired Group.
The choral ensemble had already won. If this was, and it was such a powerful piece. I just knew. I don't know how I knew. I knew. And I said my husband would back me up with that. I looked at him and I said no.
So what is the process, if you know any of it, of
I do.
how one becomes a Grammy nominee?
Okay, so you have a panel. You have lots of panels, and they listen to all sorts of music in different genres. I mean, this is real elementary. Right. I'm just an elementary worker.
Wait, tell me like I'm 5.
Well, people need to tell me everything like
right.
I'm 5. So basically, there's a lot of listening. And like I said, all different in genres. And then it gets down to that year, like September of that year, is announced what groups are now the nominees in each category. And there's quite a few.
Right.
And then in December is when they've cut it down to the finalists. And then it's coming into, the Grammys are usually February, March. Mm-hmm. So I was not surprised by September. I wasn't surprised by December, but then I was thinking, I mean, I can only do anything but hope this what. However, The Crossing had won the year before. So there was that. But there was something in me that just thought, this is going to do it. And Lansing, the composer, and we who did his work, we deserve it. It was, like I said, incredibly powerful oratorio about zealotry, about a poet who was jailed and is writing years and years, and just how fanaticism, and it's interesting, like the line between, what is fanaticism, what is zealotry, and what is just worshiping. I mean, it's really tough. It's really tough. Very powerful work. I can remember I had just come out of an opera. I think we were playing the Britain. I was walking down the street, It was cold. It was February. And I knew that I knew the vote was coming up. And I did not want to look. Like I knew after, I did not want to know. So I had my phone off during the whole opera anyway. I turned it on and it was light. It lit up. And I just knew. And I fell down on the street crying.
That's insane. So you have the award, and do you have an award?
Okay,
or?
so that's interesting.
Yeah, I want to
so the one award goes to The Crossing in his hell. Now we have pictures. Each one has your, they have us all come in with it, so we're holding it as well. So each person has it. Plus, then what you get, actually, the Grammy sends you as an artist, whether you're an artist or you're just, I don't know what the different categories, but as an artist, you get their official with their stamp and everything from the Grammys. They send you those.
So you get like a certificate.
Yeah, you get the big certificates.
That's cool, but that's the.
I'm glad. I mean, Donald makes sure he wanted everybody to have their picture taken holding the Grammy, and yeah, it's beautiful.
That's awesome. So, how much work have you gotten since then? Has that kind of like exploded your? I'm sure it's already been exploded to that point, but.
Interestingly enough, COVID hits not long after.
Right.
That's announced in 2019 pretty much, and COVID's starting in the fall of 19.
Yes.
We don't like to say that, but it was, and we were hearing about it. At least I was, because I've been in Wuhan, China several times. So I was starting to get WeChats, and I was starting to look at that news. WeChats being from my former, from people I have connections in China. I would say there's been composers talk to me, and I love that. No, not that much.
Well,
maybe some. Yeah, I shouldn't say that. I
hard
feel
to tell.
I feel really blessed.
Right.
I mean, listen, there are fabulous players all over the world and everywhere, every little town. I remember at one point, I'm going to say what the year was, maybe 1992. I'm in Lancaster. It's the beginning of when we're teaching at the Pennsylvania Academy of Music. And within like a 3-block radius of where I lived, we lived on Chestnut Street, there is a Russian and an English clarinetist. They have all come here, like monster players. We're living in Little Lancaster, Pennsylvania, in like one long block off of Chestnut Street. Like I think one was on College Avenue, Chestnut, one was down there. That's just one little place. There are monster players, artists, musicians, everything, everywhere. I have been given the opportunity of a lifetime.
Yeah, and it's incredible whenever I go out to a gig and I see some of these like one of the people that I really enjoyed watching playing is Robin Chambers. I don't know if you know her at all.
I know the name. Why do I know the name?
She's an incredible violinist and will play even when she has no strings left on her bow.
Yeah.
She just goes at it all the time, and it's incredible that she just lives right here. And she could be doing all sorts of other incredible stuff in New York City and all these other. She's been on the podcast before, and she had said when she was in Paris one time, she was just playing on the street, and she had gotten an offer to play that night at one of the like high clubs in Paris just because of her playing on the street. So it's like, you have to be really good in order for that just.
Well, yeah. Think about the story of Josh Bell playing in the subway and nobody even paid attention.
I saw that. Yeah.
Like one man did. Like somebody took it. Like I passed. Listen. I'm walking in Philadelphia constantly. I get off at 30th Street and I walk to almost everything. Or if I don't take a SEPTA somewhere else, I mean, I walk in almost every part of that city. Folks, Kensington, West Philly, South Philly, North Philly, everything I've walked through. And you can hear some monster players standing on the street. People can't even read music, just monster players. I mean, I got to play with The Who a couple years ago when Chamber Orchestra Philly was, contracted to do that. They just did it again with So, they were just in Philadelphia again. There are monster talent everywhere. It's everywhere.
Yeah.
It doesn't always mean it's a performer. There's other issues here. But the talent is pretty unbelievable.
So you have to leave a little bit soon. So I do want to talk about more about the Grammy performance because we have that lined up for people to listen to. You want to pull out those lyrics?
Well, I do want to, I just want to talk. Let me see if I can find it. Or did I didn't give it to you, did I?
No.
No, I'm sorry. Yes. I do want to read just a tad. I don't want to get people all wound up, and they can't see the picture of the poet, Wole Soyinka, who is a Nigerian poet. I want to talk. Let's talk a little bit just about how there's a journey to Zealot Canticles by Lansing McLoskey, and it really does have to do with this poet who was jailed. And I just briefly, Wole Soyinka, born in 1934, is a Nigerian poet, playwright, novelist, and recipient of the 1986 Nobel Prize for Literature.
Wow.
1967, Soyinka was arrested and imprisoned for quote-unquote civil defiance. His crimes? Denouncing the suppression of human rights and free speech by the military dictatorship of General Yubaka Gowon, intervening in an attempt to avoid the Nigerian Biafran Civil War, and condemning the genocide of the, I can't say this, so it's LGBO people. I don't do a pronunciation. In the decades following his release, Soyinka has remained an outspoken advocate for human rights. Again, we live in an amazing country. Think about people who just said something and get jailed for just because he was defending human rights. So, during his 2 years in prison, Soyinka spent several stints in solitary confinement and went on a number of hunger strikes, some near fatal. He chronicled his imprisonment in the book The Man Died, much of which was written in secret between the lines of books smuggled in by friends and sympathetic jailers, and on scraps of paper hidden in the cracks of his cell with a stolen pen, then with ingeniously homemade ink and handcrafted writing utensils. And we're worried about, not having a salad with our fish.
Right.
How
my
can
laptop died. How'd that end the world?
Right. Or, I can't have iced tea without sugar. Oh, well, that's the end of the world. Right. So, in addition to the many physical and streams things, he was in delirium, he wrote all this. In 2002, Soyinka published a set of poems titled 12 Canticles for the Zealot, a strangely beautiful and terrifying look into the mind of fanatics, containing a subtle catalog of the horrific results, past and present. Throughout the set of canticles, Soyinka makes universal pleas for peace from multiple languages and religious cultures. 7 of these poems from the core of the libretto of Zealot Canticles. So, you're getting an idea. I won't go in. It'd be great. Anybody who wants to listen to it, I think it's still free on, I forget, but Zealot Canticles, Lansing McLoskey, McLoskey. You got to hear this powerful, powerful work. So just to give you an idea what you're going to hear, there are 20 movements of this. Small movements, the stories and the poems. Yeah, the poems. But this particular canticle, I'll read you what it's about. Seek havens of peace on ocean floors. And here's the poem. The meek shall inherit the earth. Blessed are the peacemakers. Shalom, shalom, shalom. Isaro wanrin, Isaro wanrin. Salik alikam, shanti, 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 In other words, peace, peace from many of the different languages and the different religions that we're all familiar with. Seek havens of peace on ocean floors, submarine depths in lost worlds, black holes, collapsed galaxies and hermit caves, in jungle vastnesses and Arctic wastes, thorns of crowns and hairy shirts, beds of nails, the saintly cheek that turns the other side, but not in text, not by learned rote. It's there the unmeek prove inheritors of the earth. They are the scripture grooms, possessive, to the last submissive dot. Punctualist guards of annotations, they sleepwalk blind to all, but the fatal hiatus. Boom for and sword for word. What is missing is fulfilled. Now, clarinet in this movement.
It's wildly insane from what I've heard.
It is. It's going to sound insane, and you're going to hear the piece that's trying to be achieved. But unfortunately, I interweave and really try to create havoc. Wouldn't you say? Screaming from the depths.
Yeah, the virtuosity of this piece it's like Liszt, but for a clarinet.
Yeah, Lansing's a genius writer, and it's super hard, but he knew what he wanted to hear.
So the idea, if correct me if I'm wrong, is that this choir is creating this peaceful sound with with the strings,
The strings and yes, the strings and the choir and soloist. Bass
and
baritone,
so this clarinet is effectively the devil, quote unquote,
more or less, yeah.
trying to disturb this piece and throw everything out of balance.
And it's the example of really the chaos of zealotry and what happens when, you just got to follow the word.
Mm.
And the word I read, Soleil had it right there about peacemakers will inherit the earth. It tells us what to do. And nope. Nope.
Not for this clarinet.
Not for so much of humanity.
All right, well, with that all said, this is what movement?
This is the ninth movement.
The ninth movement from Zealot Canticles. The Zealot Canticles.
Zealot Canticles, yes.
From Lansing McLoskey.
McLoskey. Yep. It's hard to say that. You think you
It
want
is.
another C. You want to say McLoskey, but it's McLoskey.
McLoskey.
Yeah. It is difficult. I told Lansing, can't you add another C in there?
No, the composers, there's no shortages of impossible names to say.
He's wonderful.
With that said, this is his piece.
saintly cheek that turns the other side, but not in texts, not by learned rote. It's there, the unreprobated of the
That was incredible.
Thanks, Corey. It's not me, man. It's the writing.
Well, still, it's you can only create a piece as good as someone can play it.
Maybe.
Well, I mean, because
it is hard when sometimes when I listen, I think, wow, I really did that.
Right.
Like, there are times when I say it, and there are times like, oh, okay, you know what? That needs some work.
Well,
but
yes.
there were things like this that I said, wow.
Right.
Yeah. No, I knew. Like I said, I mean, I knew.
That it's incredible. So, I pretty much only have one other last question to ask you before you have to go. Because this is a religious piece.
Yeah.
So, what then is worship for you? How would you describe worship?
This is a really great and a really loaded question.
Oh, for sure.
I think worship. Okay, I do need to give you a little background. So I did mention before my real start in music, and in general, is for my Christian walk was being born and being baptized as a baby and such in St. James Episcopal Church in Lancaster.
Mm-hmm.
So I was brought up as an Episcopal. So you have, infant baptism. You have communion, which is your, I guess your way of saying as an adult, I accept that I was baptized as a baby and I can take communion. I'm not sure exactly. I mean, that's the idea. It's
yeah.
not, if I want to make it synonymous with like adult or teenage baptism, sort of like that, the confirmation of. So I was very active as I was in that choir. As I said, I was an acolyte, doing things.
Yes, the candle.
Sure. And, but I would say that's part of worship, but I wasn't in the word. So I think worship has to be part of every walk of everything you do in your walk in your life. So when I'm playing in some form, aren't I praising God? Aren't I letting the light shine through? And aren't I hoping that somehow I'm a reflection and that everything I do is to praise the Lord? So I think that's worship. I don't think worship is just what, somebody went for 45 minutes on a Sunday, which was a lot of how I was brought up. It was different. It was it's mass. At the same time, I was very involved all around. So maybe, but I think you gotta delve into the word and see how is it that I can be a reflection of this and try to walk in the path and be an example in everything I do. And I think that's worship. Maybe it's not. Maybe I'm way off.
At LBC here, we talk about, that's like a big conversation of what is worship within, the MWPA, the worship arts place. And it is, at least what the college is considered. Worship is everything you do with the mindset of God.
Well, I'm glad to know I was sort of on the right path.
Because people can narrow it down to just, worship is just what you do when you sing to the Lord. That's all it is. But no, it's so much more than that. There's when you're reading the Bible, you're worshiping God. When you're praying to God, you're worshiping God. When you're playing your Christian song, you are worshiping God. When you're using your talents to, you're glorifying God. When you're
supposed to be glorified, right?
Right, yeah.
And believe me, I mean, I came to the Lord as an adult. I think we said someday we'll get back to this conversation, but my adult baptism was in 2011. So this, I'm newer. I'm sort of a baby, I guess, in a way, and I became saved again as an adult. I remember doing it as a child, but it never really I didn't know what I was. Yeah. I was just saying something. Somebody say it. Summer Bible school. No, but it's not the same as walking. And I can tell you, I'm not going to let it get me down, but I feel like I sin probably 8,000 times a day, if not more. I'm just such a sinner. And it's so, so hard. But isn't it, we can't give up. We have to try. And we have to want, and we want to have to share this. Because if we're not sharing it, that's a form of worship, then we're not really glorifying God either, to me. I don't know. It's a very deep question, and it's something I struggle with, and I've got it's going to be till the day my last breath.
Yeah. Well, this has been a lot of fun.
Yeah, Corey, this is great.
Yeah, well, if you want to check out Doris, she will be she has her stuff on YouTube, on Spotify. If you just search up her name, Doris Hall-Gulati. Where are you performing anywhere upcoming?
Yeah. Wait, what am I doing right now? Oh, well, Lancaster Symphony is doing Haydn's Creation, which is the creation.
That's the creation, yeah.
Yeah. Well, we're getting to do that. I just finished playing an arranged, and it sounds crazy, I played a Vivaldi concerto. It was reconstructed. There's a Andreas Tarkman, arranger, composer from Germany, reconstructed our gorgeous clarinet and chalumeau arias from Vivaldi operas into a concerti, and I was so lucky to play this with my colleagues in the Chamber Orchestra of Philadelphia. We just did 2 live performances. Unbelievable. It makes me want to study the chalumeau and get into early instruments. Super, super cool. So, and then all summer, I get to do some teaching, some coaching. We have summer trios coming up. I get to do something with the incredible organization Music for Everyone. We get to touch lives of, some little kids. I play all year, all summer in Ocean City, New Jersey. Again, gift. And I'm lucky. I got a lot going on.
Yeah, so
Very
definitely
lucky.
definitely check out the Lancaster Symphony Orchestra.
That creation, man, guys, you want to hear
Oh,
it's beautiful
Haydn's
work.
creation, it's wonderful. I didn't know they were doing. I'm gonna have to check that out for sure.
Great.
And check out Music for Everyone. They have some really cool stuff coming up in the summer. I know that for a fact.
They do.
And Music for Everyone, if you didn't know, that's the organization that puts pianos all over Lancaster County, or
it is.
city at least. So definitely check them out, and we will have Doris on in the future to talk about more fun stuff.
Thanks, Corey.
Yep. With all that
Yeah.
said, I hope everyone has a wonderful rest of the day, and goodbye.
Yes, thank you.